All right. Before I give the handouts, I want to make, because this is the first year, I want to make a general hakdama to what this year is going to be about a little bit. Okay. Before I do, since this is an independent year from the 8 o'clock year, as always, I want to thank the good people at TorahAnytime.com for making this year more widely available. And I want to dedicate the Limud HaTorah tonight for the Refuah Shalom of Yaakov Meir ben Buna, Sei Cheva Bas Chaim Masha, and Lahavu ben Chaim Chaim Limud Nishma Siuda ben Nachum. Okay, so we're starting a new series here tonight, Chaim Smart, entitled Chassidus from Misnagdim. In point of fact, I see some of the participants here tonight are Chassidim, or people from Chassidus Abstam. So you can, those of you who are described that way, perhaps you want to ignore my introductory remarks. But for those of you who like the title Chassidus from Misnagdim, I want to make a couple of disclaimers before we learn our first Chassidish text. 3 points. Okay? Misnagdim, opponents. Okay? What are we opposing? So again, I'm not a big historian. I'm not saying, learn through with a fine-tooth comb, with a line-item veto, Sefer Tanya and Sefer Nefesh HaChaim, to understand all the theological things that basically Midrash Shalagra and the Talmid Baal Shem Tov argued about. I think for something like that, it's apropos of the old Yiddish joke. The Rav calls an Eisvarf, somebody we call today OTD, into his office, and he says, they're around about you, they talk about you in town. You stopped wearing tefillin. So the fellow said, of course I stopped wearing tefillin. I said, what? Why did you stop wearing tefillin? He says, I should wear tefillin? Rashi and Rabbi Tam have an argument? I should take sides? Right? So, when it comes to the actual machlekes between the early Chassidim and the early Misnagdim, I'm not going there. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about contemporarily people who still like to self-describe as Misnagdim. So, there are a few points I want to address about that. Okay. Number one, there is a historical narrative. The old expression goes: the winners write history, losers don't write history. Losers write conspiracy theories. But history gets written by the winners. Who won the Chassidish Misnagdish of this debate? I don't know who won. Okay? I don't know who writes the history. I don't think this is coming from either camp. I think this is coming more from the Maskilim camp. But at any rate, there is a historical narrative about Chassidus that took root, that without offending those of you from Chassidus Abstam, because I too am from Chassidus Abstam, but these are the facts on the ground. Almost any secular history, you open up Britannica, you open up the Catholic Encyclopedia Judaica, for all I know, Wikipedia, okay? You'll always hear something along these lines. The rank and file Jew felt disenfranchised. The rabbis had grown remote and out of touch. There was also, something with the Cantonistan, that the rich people and the intellectual elite, would buy their kids out of the service in the Tsar's army, and Nebuch, the rank and file people. Now that may have a kernel of truth to it, but there's this idea that Chassidus is Judaism dumbed down for the masses. Okay? And there is a particular Misnagdisha, Litvisha snobbery, I don't have any other better word to describe it with, that clings to some scintilla of this idea. Chassidim, they're Amaratzim. Chassidim can't nishlein. Okay. One of the things that I hope to accomplish with this series is to blow that notion totally out of the water. Now, I don't mean to say that the great rabbis or the movement as a whole, taking a broad historical sweep, did not address the spiritual needs and yearnings of the Am Chiyid. It certainly did. There's no question about it that certainly up until World War II, there were a lot more Hasidim than there were Misnagdim. It resonated much more. It had a lot greater appeal, okay, to Am Chiyid. There were no entrance exams, so to speak. In most groups, right?
But you read these svarim, and again, just to give a little bit of an overview of the history of it. How can any reasonable person make the argument that this is a movement for Amaratzim when you have minds like the Tanya, like the Haflo, like the Divrei Chaim, like the Chelkas Yayev, like the Sfas Emes? I mean, we're talking about, like with Tzadok HaKayin of Lublin, we're talking about people that you read 2 lines of their work, and the genius is just dripping. It's so manifest. It's so the breadth of their knowledge, the sweep. You read a shtickle of Rav Nachman or Rav Tzadok, and they had kol atayr kula munach b'kusa, and not only munach b'kusa but systemized. The profundity, the flashes of brilliance that you see when you look. It's a new sign-in sheet, so if you don't mind passing it around for those who just came in for the second year. I signed in pretty much anyone who was here for the first year. So that's one thing that I hope to accomplish with this. Just you want to call it a public relations move on my part. For my Hasidic ancestors, you can call it that if you want. But just to knock this silly notion out of people's head that Chassidus, it's a mass movement. It's not. It has no intellectual appeal, has no intellectual depth. It's all about a uniform and about superstitions and this, that, and the other thing. Hopefully, we'll learn a few shticklich of these classic Chassidish svarim from a lot of different streams, from a lot of different kreisen, and we'll get the sense and we'll get this understanding that despite the fact that yes, it did have an appeal to the masses, that wasn't what the movement was about. Look, if you take the Chassidish narrative internally, the movement is about bringing Mashiach. Baal Shem Tov had an aliyah's neshama. He met Mashiach and the Heichal Mashiach. He asked him, when are you coming? And the answer was, when your well springs will be spread far and wide. Okay? But even if you want to talk about more pragmatic, ideas behind the movement and behind the ideology, it's silly to say that it was a grassroots thing, to help some disenfranchised, lowest strata of society. It doesn't hold water. When you see what kind of minds we're Hasidim and we're Rebbes, it's untenable. Such a historical view is untenable. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people who cling, steadfastly, shall we say, to Misnagdim opposition, do it for a very simple reason. I'm not a reformer. I don't believe in reformations. Okay? What are one of our big tainas against other major world religions? Okay, I'm a little bit, I'm behaving to this, I'm a kiruv worker by that, it's my day job, right? So, now sometimes we have to deprogram a guy, who's a Jew for Yashka or something like that. And usually one of the first lines we tell the guy is, I want to ask you a question, okay? 10 minutes before Jesus of Nazareth was born, was Judaism the true religion? 100%. So you want to posit a divinity that changes its mind? Judaism is a true religion. God revealed His will, right? You want to start making changes? You want to say, no, that covenant is broken, and with Islam the same time. 10 minutes before Muhammad appeared on the scene, Moshe Rabbeinu was a supreme prophet. Now you want to say that no, Muhammad is a supreme prophet. You're making the changes? Call Mishana, Yad al Tachtayim. You want to start changing things? The burden of proof is on you, not on me. Okay? So, those of us who like to cling to that old-time religion will say that up until the Baal Shem Tov, there was no such word as Misnagdim. Misnagdim was a word promulgated by Chassidim to talk about the people who were stubborn, who weren't joining the movement. But up until the Baal Shem Tov, everybody was a Misnagdim. Yeah? We're all Catholics before the Protestant Reformation. I'm not a reformer. Chassidus brought in all of these new ideas, these revolutionary things. It's another thing in the academic antinomianism. They're against halacha, and this idea of needing. I'm just giving you a few examples, interceders between me and God. What do you mean? Maimonides writes in the 13 Principles. When you go with a clip to the Rabbi, aren't you praying to a man instead of to a human being? The whole Rebbe worship. Chassidim and Hagam, they're strange, they're borderline Avodah Zarah, they're obscurantists, that is. It's a reformation. So what do I care if it's Solomon Geiger's reformation or Israel Baal Shem Tov's reformation? I'm not a reformer. That's what a lot of people say. So I'm here to tell you, and hopefully what we're going to see as we embark on this journey of studying Chassidish Sfarim is that Chassidus is not a reformation, it is a reaffirmation. And by that I mean, you'll be very, very hard put to find any concept. I'm not saying certain proteistic manhagim, perhaps, but you'll be very hard put to find any real Chassidish concept, okay, that doesn't have antecedents in Chazal. More than that, we're going to be learning stuff where it says, that's a Chassidish idea. I saw that in the Musa Sefer. That's a Chassidish idea. I saw that in Ben Ishchai. It's a Kabbalistic idea. That's a Chassidish idea. It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Exactly. It's not a break with the past. It's Torah Yiddishkeit with certain different emphasis. I forget which one of the Gittiyid and which one of the great rabbis said. I think it was a verse in the Chayva. Somebody asked him, first of all, I have to know that, again, Chassidus is a movement that's still evolving. And it's not static. The Chassidus, in general, the Yiddishkeit that we have today, the Orthodox, Torah true, quote unquote, Yiddishkeit that we have today, is not the one of our parents, of our grandparents, or of 100 or 150 years ago. It's different, and in some cases, radically different. Right? One of the major differences is that up until almost pre-war Europe, one's Chassidish allegiance was on a lifetime contract. Your Rabbi died, you noshed around, you shopped around, you looked for somebody who you shared a shirish neshama, a common soul root with. And it was not uncommon for Chassidim to move between rabbis to have 4 or 5 different rabbis in their lifetime. Nowadays, pretty much, if you're born into Babov and you go to the Babov Cheder, you're going to die Babov Chassid. Which Babov Rabbi? That's a separate question, but right? So there was this Chassid, was Rabbi Hirsch the Chayva, and he said, Rabbi, how come the tzaddikim have so many different mahalachim? It's so confusing. I feel overwhelmed. Which is the right way? One person crechs by the davening, and one person screams by the davening, and one person, rides around in a golden horse-drawn carriage, and one person doesn't go to sleep at night until the last pruta in his house is given away to Aniyah. And one person davens a 4-hour Shemoneh Esrei, and one person davens a 30-second Shemoneh Esrei. And one Rebbe is ascetic, and then he fasts for weeks on end, and the other one is opulent, and even in his personal consumption. What's going on over here? And his answer was, auf den Spitzberg trefft man sich. So at the summit of the mountain, everybody meets up. The tzaddikim don't hate each other. Everybody has a mahalach. You're a mountain climber. Some people like to go up the south face of a mountain. Some people like to go up the north face. Some people like to take a direct route. Some people hold you have to take a snaky route. A lot depends on your equipment. A lot depends on your physical fitness. Some people want to take the cable car or the ski lift up the mountain. There are shortcuts also, right? That's how it is in Avodas Hashem too. No? Don't get overwhelmed, and don't marginalize. You don't have to be vituperative of other people's mahalchim to validate your own. Auf the Spitzberg treffen sich, at the summit of the mountain, we're all going to meet up. So of course it's not shocking that big Balei Avodah, the great servants of God, as the great Chassidim, the great rabbis were, that you're going to see common lines that draw their provenance, draw their heritage back to Chazal and back to Musar and back to Kabbalah, of course, because it's not a break with the past. It's not a reformation. It's a reaffirmation. What you put the emphasis on, okay, there was a wide range by the different rabbis. I'll give you a few examples, okay? What's this business of giving a kvittel to a rabbi, he should pray for you? What's this business? Chazal say, Mi sheyesh lechaylu b'seich b'esei, yelech etzel chacham, yivakish al rachman. You have a sick person in your house. You go to a chacham, and the chacham should be mevakish rachman. He should daven for you. How does that jive with the Rambam's dogma of our faith that we only pray to God? It's a good question, but it's not a question of the Chassidish movement. You have to understand what the Gemara means. When do you daven for yourself? And Chassidish history is replete with rabbis who said, you got to daven for yourself. I can't help you on this one. But to say that, that's a chiddush of theirs, that some kind of foreign influence or some idea utterly foreign to Judaism, it's a libel. I go to a Rabbi for a bracha. What do the Rabbi's brachas mean? What do the Rabbi's brachas mean? What do Avraham Avinu's brachas mean? What do Yitzchak Avinu's brachas mean? It's the first haftakah to the Jewish people. Hey, bracha. L'cha ha-brachas mesuras. It's a Rashi and Chumash. You have the power, you have the gift to bless people. There are people in Jewish history who have the gift of blessing. That's something that Chassidus were mechadish. Babikak. Simcha. Mitzvah gedal liyos b'simcha tamid. Yeah? It says by Shalom Melech, Kenage and Amenage, right? When the music would play, it would lift the spirits, and then Hagam Shol Banavim, then Ruach HaKadosh could be shared. Chazal say Mufurish that depression drives away Ruach HaKadosh. The emphasis on Simcha, the centrality of Simcha, okay, that could be a nuance, so to speak, of various groups within the much larger movement. It's a monolithic movement. The Muslim movement was monolithic, and the Chassidus is certainly not monolithic. Right? But to say that these things, are breaks with Jewish tradition, and then I don't want to have any truck with it. I'm Misnagdim. I oppose that. I like to have my Messiah unadulterated. I'm a straight arrow, right back to Moshe Rabbeinu. See them, they're playing around. Baloney. And finally, Chassidus for Misnagdim. Maybe it's a good title, maybe it's not. We advertise a little late. I see Baruch Hashem, we have a few new faces tonight. Mitzvah Hashem. Next week we'll have more. But here's the thing to remember before we take ourselves too seriously, either as Chassidus or as Misnagdim. A beautiful mashal from the Satmar Rebbe, the Zichron Livracha. Satmar Rebbe talked about contemporary Chassidus and Misnagdim. He said as follows: nowadays we have institutionalized Kyle, at least in theory. The stipend that the Kyle pays the married students, the Torah scholars, is supposed to sustain them to be able to learn Torah full time after their wedding. That theory hasn't worked. That the system's been broken. Or I shouldn't say broken. It's gone back to its origins probably now for about the better part of 25, 30 years. Maybe some of the out of town Kyle, they have to pay a premium to get you in the light to move to the boonies. So maybe there you can survive any Kyle check. But before there were organized Kyle, there was a system called S and Kes. It's called in Yiddish. The individual father-in-law, moneyed father-in-law, wanted his daughter to marry a great Torah scholar. You go into the great yeshivas, talk to yeshiva, pick out one of your best students. I want him for my daughter. And that's what it would be. The 5 years cast, 10 years cast, 15 years cast. Some Rabbi told a story like this. Turn of the last century, a fabricant, a factory owner, very wealthy man. He had 2 daughters. He went to the yeshiva. Spoke to Rosh Yeshiva, picked me out a couple of Bachrim. I want them to marry my daughters. I'll support them for 15 years after the Chasana. And then we'll see if they get an offer of Rabbanus, a prestigious Rabbanish stellar, they'll take that. If not, I'll take them into the family business. Whatever. But what I'm promising is 15 years, I'll tell you, I'll invite you, don't have to think about anything. Bilti Lashem will have it. So, they moved to this little town, this little hamlet where this rich man lives. And the fact of the matter is they left the big yeshiva and they really have nobody else to learn with except each other. Okay? So one guy's name was Fischl and one guy's name was Moshe. So Fischl and Moshe become chavrusas in the town of their share. And Fischl gets a nickname in town as Fischl the Fleischiger. And Moshe is known as Moshe the Milch. Why? Moshe was a frummer. He didn't trust the local shachtim. He didn't like the way the knives looked. They weren't unnicked enough for him. And he was meineya from eating any flesh in this town. And the share was supporting him. He's living large. So official, the fleischiger, he's standing in rib steaks and, I don't know, go down the block. You'll see what the good cuts of meat are. Those kind of cuts of meat, he was sending into them. Biyad Rechava 3 times a week. There were meat deliveries. And the other guy is getting aged brie and then big, wheels of Swiss cheese and, sun-dried tomato-infused cheese. That's what he's getting over there. They're learning b'chavrusa. And Moshe says to Fish, look, we're best of friends. We learn all the time. Our wives are sisters. How about you come to me for a Suda? Friday Tzadaks. Moshe says to Fish, Fischl, I'd love to, except Ich will nicht bleiben schuldig. I don't want to get the short end of the stick. And if I go to you, I'm not going to be able to reciprocate because I'm going to invite you back. I serve fleischiks, and you're going to say, "I'm sorry, I don't trust the shakal in this town. Can't do it." A few years pass, and World War I hits. I'm terrible at history. What came first, World War I or the Great Depression? Which one came first?
World War I.
Okay.
10 years before.
Okay.
15 years before.
Whatever. World War I hits. Okay, I'm compressing the time. It's a theoretical case. It's just for something wherever the guy crosses the point. World War I hits, and the father-in-law is a man of honor. He calls in his agents and he says, "Listen, I know you're only married 3.5 years, but I cannot support you in the high style that you're accustomed to until now." So he starts setting in official the fleischiger chuck steak, and he starts setting in the other guy non-aged minced cheese. Okay, not a bad diet, still a fairly rich diet. Comes the Great Depression. They still got 7.5 years left on their contract or so. And he calls him and he says, "Chavra, I don't want to shorten. Baruch Hashem, you're learning flossing, you're steiging, you're developing into true Torah giants. You need to eat, but I can't do it in the same style that you're used to." He starts setting in official the fleischiger chopped meat, and the other guy starts setting in sour cream cheeses, yogurts. That's all he can afford. That's what they're eating. And every couple of years, Moshe the Milchiker says to the official to fleischiger, "How about it? We should socialize more. Our wives and sisters, the families are growing. The cousins should get to know one another." "No, I can't. It's not. I can't reciprocate. You'll never come to my house." Finally, there's about 2 years left on the contract, and the Shreir's Pashat Regulus, his factory goes bankrupt. He calls the fellows in. He says, "Listen, you guys are my pride and joy. You've kept your end of the deal, even with diminishing returns. If anything, your diligence has gotten greater. Okay." But I'm sorry, the only thing I have left is bulbas. Potatoes. That's all I can sustain you guys with. Muntig bulbas, Dienstig bulbas is a song for the day in, day out. It'll be coming out of years. That's the only way I can still sustain you guys another 2 years. Shver Leiben, it's fine, we can make it. Anyway, about 3 months after this arrangement, once again, Moshe the Milchiker asks the Shrager, his brother-in-law, official of Flesh, "No, when are you going to come to my house for Shabbos?" "I give up. How many times do I have to go through this with you? You're Milchik, I'm Fleischik, I'm going to come eat by you, it'll be fine. I'll invite you back. You'll never come to me." Moshe leans forward conspiratorially. He says, "Fischl, what are you talking about? In the town, we're still known as the Fleischik and the Milchik. But you and I know the truth. We're both Parv now. So why can't we come together? We're both Parv." That's what the Satmar Rabbi said today's Chassidus Misnagdim. It's a name. It doesn't mean anything. It's utterly meaningless. Whatever the original fights were about, the ideologies, the clashing Darkei Avodah, it's a uniform. It's a pronunciation. It's all these external, silly things. For that, we shouldn't come together. Because you're a graduate of a Litvish yeshiva, you should never look at a Sfas Emes. You're looking above a yeshiva, you should never learn from Chaim Brisker. It's ridiculous. That said, let's learn something tonight. Okay. I'm going to learn a Sfas Emes on the Parsha. Please take one and pass it around. Let me have a few for this side. Yeah, okay. All right. Since I didn't keep a handout for myself, is it page 281?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Page 281. Okay. So, for those of you who are not aware, I mean, I'm not going to. I overspoke my Hagdama tonight. There's not that much time left to actually learn the sefer that we want to learn. But since I'm calling it Chassidus from Misnagdim, so again, I'm not presuming any prior knowledge. Without going into a big history, Sfas Emes was the second Ger Rebbe. First Ger Rebbe was his grandfather, Chadusha Rim. The reason why it wasn't the third Ger Rebbe is because the Chadusha Rim had many children, all of whom died in his own lifetime. So when he was finally lifted, the mantle of leadership passed to his grandson, Rabbi Leib, known eponymously by the name of the Sefer Sfas Emes on Chumash Moedim. He also wrote on Shas, a very Pshatavna Sefer, very popular in the Brisker Yeshivas. He wrote on Seder Moed and Seder Kachim, enough of a Hesped, Devrayim Hamim Zechron. Let's learn his words. This is very, very interesting to me, this Sfas Emes, because it describes the name of the Sefer, the Shlichel, and it's on our Parsha. So it's on page 281, the left-hand column, the Dibra Maskell, the paragraph at the top, the Pasuk. The pasuk Vayikra Yaakov al banav, Hayasu Agida Lam, that's Asher Yikra Eschem B'Achas, right? Yaakov calls his children and he says, gather round, and I'm going to reveal to you that which will occur to you in the end of days. Well, the Medrash on the pasuk says exactly as follows: Meheichen zachu Yisrael l'kriyas shema meYaakov. We all know, the Shlotim said kriyas shema. Yaakov Avinu responded with Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam. These are famous Rashis and Midrashim, but the actual lashon of Medrash is, how were the Shlotim zeicha to kriyas shema? Through Yaakov Avinu. Okay, now a little bit of a preamble before we read the text inside. A very fundamental idea in Yiddishkeit, again I want to emphasize, not just in Chassidus, is the fact that the dignity of man, what a human being is a medaber. The Mekubalim had a 4-tiered pecking order of creation, that's Cham. Daimem, Semeach, Chai, Medaber. Right? The inert, quiet, what we would call minerals, right? Semeach, plant life, Chai, animal life, Medaber, speech endowed life. A lot of different ways to describe human beings. Free will endowed, erect posture, recognizes creator, intelligent, a lot of different ways. But the way the Torah understood the defining characteristic of a human being that basically subsumes all the other unique characteristics of a human being is a medaber, speaker, speech endowed. You'll notice that in all of our tefillas, V'raimam tanu mikol al shaynais always comes on the heel of Asher Bach Rabbanim mikol al. There's something about Lashon Kodesh. There's something about humanity's last best chance, aka the Jewish people. Atam Kurim Adam, Ve'enu Matzah Kurim Adam. There's something uniquely Adamdik, human, about us that adheres in the fact that the language that we speak and that we are speakers. Our whole koyach is our gift for speech. Hakol kol Yaakov, v'yadayim yadai Esav. The voice is Yaakov's voice. The arms belong to Esav. Okay, enough preamble. Let's see how he deals with this. The Medrash again. The Medrash he's dealing with is a Medrash that says, Klal Yisrael was zeicha to Kriyas Shema through Yaakov Avinu. What does that mean? Let's connect the dots. The Chsiv, v'zayis asher dibur l'maviyim, shemasa lahem kayach hadibur. The way it's Vashem is tied to the pasuk. This is what their father spoke to them. Doesn't mean this is what their father spoke to them. This is speech, not a speech that he gave his children. He gave them speech. V'zayis asher dibur lahem aviyim. Their father Yaakov Avinu gave the Shiftei Korah, gave the 12 tribes of Israel the capacity for Dibur. The majesty, the grandeur of what Dibur is all about. Shebazeh HaKoyach me'idin b'nei Yisrael al-Bayre. With the power of speech, why is that what it means to be human? Why is that the ultimate humanity? Because I can testify. Atem edai v'ani kel. When you are my witnesses, kaviyachol I'm God. When Hashem yichol dav, there won't be a chazal like this. It will be heresy to say such words. Then iatem edai. I think the lashon chazal is anapei yichol dav. If you're not going to testify more for me, if you're not going to declare verbally what witnesses do, yes, there is a God. If you're not going to do that, it's the end of my divinity. But there's such a concept that it's the edus of Klal Yisrael, that our expression of our humanity, our power of speech, our humanity, Kaviyachol gives God his divinity. Shebazeh koyach me'idin b'nei Yisrael al-Bayre. Uksiv. So you have to see how he's building his case here. He's connecting the dots. Svas emes tikan la'ad. Lips of truth will endure forever. Name of the sefer. Svas emes. Yeah. Who's emes? In Jewish ideology, who represents the pillar of truth? But if you have to talk about a human being, who represents that divine meter? Who's most like divinity, because divinity is truth? Yaakov Avinu is the Amud Emes. Titen Emes LeYaakov. The pasuk says, Chesed LaAvram, the meter of Chesed we ascribe to Avram Avinu. The meter of Emes is Yaakov Avinu.
because of Mitzvah Shlema, and that's connected.
Yeah, well, that's part of the Tikkun lot, because the Psilus that came out of Avram and Yitzchak is not going to endure forever. It doesn't have a Nitzchak, particularly Esav. But Esav, we say, Chazal deconstruct his name to mean Da Shav Shabarasi Ba'alami. Yeah? And Achrisa Ha'De'evet Amalek is the quintessence of Esav. That's the only thing that doesn't have a Tikkun, that really doesn't have any kind of Nitzchias. That's the polar opposite of Klal Yisrael. Okay, well, let's see where he goes with it. Yaakov Lamas. Yaakov is the truth. What does it mean Yaakov gave the Kayach HaDibur? The Kayach to declare the truth of Kaviyachal of the Eibishter to his children. Because he is that. That's what Yaakov is. He's Emes. Tita and Emes the Yaakov. V'ashvatim em svas Emes. The Shvatim are the svas Emes, the lips of truth. Ki HaDibur nishlam ha'idei svasayim. The same way, all of the Kedusha potential of Yaakov, I forget which great Jewish thinker, first gave this very beautiful metaphor. You have to think of Yaakov Avinu's relationship to the Yud Bei Shiftei Ka as white light being refracted through a prism. Right? Every Shevet on the Chayshin had a different gemstone with a different color, different colors of the rainbow, but it's all contained in the original white light of Yaakov Avinu, which really addresses your point. There's no psilos. It does a shleim. Right? And it's, the Rashi about Mitaz Shlem, that was the preamble to Shema Yisrael. He said, listen, maybe some of you look okay, but maybe some of you, you don't have the same machshavas about the Eibishter that I do. And they said, and that's when they said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Okay. At any rate, so he's saying, we all say Tefillah Zakah. Right? So Tefillah Zakah is most famous for, you be Michael me, I'll be Michael you. You wash my hands, I'll wash your hands. Right? They even say, why daven? Yeah, they call out from the Mishnah Berurah says that if you're not, Kol Nidra is about to start, and you haven't gotten to that part of Tefillah Zakah yet, skip to that part, because that's the main thing, because Kippur won't be Mechaper on Aver Sheben L'Chavere unless we get Mechila from the people we've agreed. But if you remember in Tefillah Zakah, we talk about the Hey Moitzayis Hadibur. There are 5 things that complete human speech. Right? Palate, tongue, mouth, teeth, and lips. Voice box, palate, tongue, teeth, and lips. Right? So what's the outermost of the Hey Moitzayis Hadibur? Talk about expression, getting it out, getting the thought out, and communicating with another being. Right? What's the real connective tissue, if you will? What's the outermost of the Hey Moitzayis Hadibur? The Svasayim, the lips. So he says, the same way the Shvatim are the actualization, the implementation, the white light, if you will, of Yaakov, brought to full fruition, is through Klal Yisrael. There's the person, Yisrael, and then there's the nation, Yisrael. And then that's through the Yud Bei Shiftei Ka. So he says that's like the relationship between the lips and the message that's being delivered. What actually, the message is truth. Emes. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that is the truth. Right? What delivers that message? Ultimately, the Svasayim, the 2 lips. V'ashvatim em Svas Emes. Ki hadibur nishlam ha'yedei Svasayim. U'mikaydem ha'yasafa achas. Ancient, in days of yore, there was just one language. Uvedar Flaga, ha'yedei shaloi ha'yedvukim be'emes, because they got disconnected from the truth, in the Dar Flaga, so much so that they wanted, far from testifying to the truth of the truth, they wanted to wage war on the truth. We know the Rashi, that they were building a migdal, whatever that means. The Mukabal Kotchal being kites, it's been the Tias. But on some level or another, they were in open rebellion against God. Right? That was the Dar Flaga, the generation of dispersion. Up until then, there was one universal human language. You call it Safa Achas or Dvar Machadim, that's what it says by the Dar Flaga. The truth of the matter is that in post-Dar Flaga world, it took a while, it took many generations to develop. We are the only Medabrim left. Really, the baseline meaning of that very controversial and politically incorrect Chazal of Adam Kriyam Adam, Ve'enu Masayil Kriyam Adam, has to do with the Koyach HaDibur, with the capacity for speech, in particular, Lashon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue. The Holy Tongue, that was the common vernacular of mankind before the Dar Floga, is now something V'ram Tanu Mikol Lashon, that's something miyuchad to Klal Yisrael. It's unique to Klal Yisrael. Because of Atam Eidai Nu'um Hashem, you are my witnesses. Pirish, B'koyach Chav Beis Oisiyus V'Lashon HaKodesh and Imsal Bnei Yisrael, through the 22 letters of the Lashon HaKodesh alphabet, and through the whole language that's given Dafka now to Bnei Yisrael, Lashon Shemalach Yashaz Mishtamshim Ba, it's a Lashon that the angels use, Who Echad Mehadvarim Shadaim Ha'adam L'Al Yonim Shemadar B'Lashon HaKodesh. The Gemara says there are 5 ways that human beings are similar to Malachim, and 5 ways that human beings are similar to animals. And one of the 5 ways is that they talk in Lashon HaKodesh. Now he says something very, this is subtle, and I hope I'm getting it right. He's saying something very profound. V'zeh achilik ben safa l'svas. What's the difference between one lip and 2 lips? I mean the flower, 2 lips. What's the difference between one lip and 2 lips? Safa and svas. Well, one ends with a letter hey, and one ends with a letter saf. One can articulate the last of the letters, and one lip flapping alone, and it's like the Zen thing. What's the sound of one hand clapping? I don't know. What's the sound of one lip flapping? I don't know. But zeh achilik ben safa l'svas, ki hasvasayim hem lahashlam adibur. Not only are the svasayim there to finish off speech, right? If somebody has a split lip, or a lisp, or something like that, he can't manipulate his lips right, then the speech is not, the elocution will not be there, the speech will not be articulated properly. But there's not something else about the lips that one lip alone can't do, and that's as follows: Gam listam ulahatzim mashein tzarich l'daber l'galos. If a person is a medaber, if a person is a talker, I should be talking incessantly. Parenthetically, there's nothing to do. It would seem it has nothing to do with Chassidus, but again, there's one of these things that on the mountain summit everybody meets up. They say about the Chafetz Chaim that he was the most loquacious person you could imagine. The man didn't stop talking. You think, ooh, he's Nizar and Shmiras HaLashon. He was probably a sphinx. To get a word out of him, probably. People have made all the biographies I've ever read about the Chafetz Chaim is he didn't stop talking. Forget about it. All right? The very time, correct, rain the raid, 100% Shmiras HaLashon. But he wasn't asking people to be hermits. Learn the halachas, know how to talk, learn what you're allowed to talk, and you talk. Just fine. I'm the living example. Look at me. He led by example. Okay? Nevertheless, there are things that we're not supposed to speak. There's laws of Shmiras HaLashon, Sheker, and Rechilus, and Klolus, all kinds of diburim, Shluas, Nadarim, all kinds of diburim that human beings allowed to speak. The lips can express, but the lips can be tightened. The lips can close. The Gemara says that a person has 2 walls, 2 fortresses in their makeup. The teeth is one line of defense. The last line of defense, even if a word gets past the teeth, you keep a tight lip, a zippered lip. Loose lips sink ships. There's propaganda posters in World War I. Loose lips sink ships. Keep your lips tight, and no untoward word will come out of them. That's the difference between a single lip and a double lip. A single lip, the words can still get past. That's one of the difference between safa and svas. Let's see where he wants to go with this. Safa, the word safa is with hey psucha. What's the difference between the tsuras ha'ais and ksav ha'shuras? What's the difference between that? Look at me for a second. What's the difference between a hey and a saf? A hey only goes this far, upwards. There's still a way to get out. We all know the Rashi Chumash, if a Balshuva, if a Russia falls through the bottom, he still has a way to get back through the top. That's why this world was never with the letter hey, next world with the letter yud. But also, when it's not sealed on top, there's a way for the expression, the untoward expression, to get out. Svas, all you did was you lifted the leg of the hay all the way up to the top, to the roof. Now things are closed. Now things are hermetically sealed. What he does with the bottom, I'm not quite sure. But at least in terms of the right leg of the 2 letters, one is pasuach and one is sassim. One is closed and one is open. Safa hey psucha. Safa is written with an open hey. Usvas b'saf stuma. The saf is a closed letter. At least again, copy that upper left hand corner. Ad la'asid. It's only till the world to come. In other words, a Jew has to have that capacity. You have to know when to be atem edai. You have to know when to be the safa, the lip that expresses, and you have to know when you have to be the svas emes. That the only way to hold on to the emes is to hold it for yourself, to keep it behind closed lips. That's the difference between the safa and the svas. That's the situation in this world. But nachris hayamim, in the end of the days, ad losid, the ksiv, oz epach el amim, safa brura, likra kulam b'shem Hashem. Then it's not going to be any more miyuchat to Klal Yisrael. Then Klal Yisrael will bring a tikkun to all the Ummah. It'll be a one world religion. Everyone will have their tikkun. And then you don't need any more svasayim, the closed lips. Then it can taka be a safa. His diyak al is beautiful. Okay? Oz epach alam. Then, in the end of the days, I will turn to the nations. Safa brewer, not svasayim brewers, not clear lips. Safa brewer, the one lip, that's constantly taught and constantly open. Likra kula b'shem Hashem. Then they'll all call b'shem Hashem. It will be an undoing of the kilkel of the Dar Flaga. What the Dar Flaga did wrong and ruined the human language and ruined in the human capacity to be a medaber. That's what's going to be fixed through Klal Yisrael in Achos Hayam in the times of Mashiach. Uve emes, ayadei svas emes shal b'nei Yisrael yikol atikun lasim. Through the closed lips of Klal Yisrael now in this world, that will bring about the tikkun of the asin will be not a svas emes, but a safa brewer, a single lip that's open and revealing. V'zeh tikkun la'ad, pa'el yotze. Yeah, pa'el yotze is what those of us not so schooled in Digduk will call hifil. Okay, I'm a graduate in American Masifta system, so my Digduk isn't too strong. But what I think he's saying is that the conjugation of the word, whatever the root verb is, that the word tikkun comes from, tikkun is causative. Something causing others to do. Svasi emes tikkun la'ad doesn't mean the lips of truth will stand forever. It means the lips of truth will cause others to stand forever. Will cause standing forever. Difference between dressing yourself and dressing somebody else. Lashon hifil. Yeah? Le'islabesh, lehalbish. That's pa'el yotze. The old time Bali Digduk didn't call that Lashon Hifel, they call Lashon Pa'el Yaitse. Yeah? The Zet Tikkun La'ad Pa'el Yaitse Shal Dei Svas Emes, through our Svas Emes, our lips that are sometimes sealed in this world, Yistaknu Kol Lashinas. All the Lashinas of all B'nai Adam will achieve that Tikkun. The Zet Kayach Lashon HaKadosh Hinchel Yankel Levanav. That unique and special power of Lashon HaKadosh is our legacy from Yankov Avinu. That's what Yankov Avinu gave to his children. V'alzek siv schayim ha'isaylam shal avicha v'yageidcha. Okay, Lashon, remember. You know these psukim that we in Parashat Azinu, schayim ha'isaylam, remember the days of yore. Yeah? Schayim ha'isaylam. Binu shnais dar v'dar. Binu shnais dar v'dar means the dar of the mabul and the dar of haflaga. It's not an accident that the Yodei Mitzrayim, Yaakov and his Heiskazund, the family he's bringing down now to Mitzrayim is 70 souls, and the total number of nations that came out of the Dar Flaga was also 70. It's not an accident. Right? So he's saying, Sha'al Avicha, if you binu shnais Dar, if you want to understand those generations and the ultimate degradation of humanity through the Dar Flaga, Sha'al Avicha, ask your final father, Yankov Avinu, v'yageitcha. He'll do the telling, he'll do the human thing, the communication. What's the first pasuk you start with? Look at the beginning of the Torah piece. Heyasu v'agida lochem. What does Yankov Avinu say to his children? It's going to be a Haggadah now, the telling, the human thing, the communication. In our Lashon, in Lashon Kodesh. Uvnei Yisrael tzrichim b'chol yom l'vakesh ha'emes. U'mizgal lehem. B'nai Yisrael have to every day look for the truth, and then it becomes revealed to them. If seek and you shall find. If you'll search for the truth, it will be revealed to you. Kerechsiv titein emes liyankev lashon hayve. It doesn't say nasan emes liyankev. He gave kaviyachol le'ebrish the past tense emes only to the historical person, Yankov Avinu. Titen emes leYankov Avinu. You're giving, you will give, you're always giving emes to Klal Yisrael. Lashon Hayvin. B'chol yom, each and every day, how? B'kayach kriyashma. When we declare the ultimate truth, the one and only truth, as the Rambam always writes, the one mechuyev hametzias, the one being that must be. That's muchuv. That's got to be the being imperative. That's what must be. That's the truth. So when we read Kriyashma, we get a dose of emes by declaring, by being atam edah, by using our svasan, by using our yom kayach adibur to declare the emes of the Eibishter, we get emes. V'lachein mevarchem kol Kriyashma haberach b'am Yisrael v'ahava ein sham shabach rabbanim mikol l'shaynos. Bechira Klal Yisrael doesn't just mean Bechira to give the Torah, but it also speaks to our Kayach of Lashon HaKadosh. They always go together. Bach Barim Kol Ham v'Ramanim Mikol Lashon. K'moshe Kosev, Yatzav Gulas Amim U'Mispah B'nai Yisrael, Chelek Hashem Amim. He set up the nations of the world directly proportionate to the number of Bnei Yisrael, 70 versus 70, and nevertheless, Chelek Hashem Amim. Still, nevertheless, Klal Yisrael has a special personal relationship with Rabbi Shalom. They're called the Chelek Hashem. The Yatzanim al-Klal, the Lamed al-Klal Kula. Yes, we left the rest of humanity. We are queer. We are the other. We are always despised as the eternal other, the eternal outsider. But what the Ummah failed to understand is, we didn't go and say goodbye. We left to teach about the rest of the Klal, that ultimately the rest of the Klal will also be Sofer Brura, Likwei Kulam B'Shem Hashem. Well, the second call of Shainis. In the Pirush Rashi, Hashem Shuat Elokeinu Atzad Liyas Mavur L'Chol Hamim. We say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Famous Rashi on the pasuk. Hashem Shuat Elokeinu. Now he's only our God. Atzad Liyas Hashem Echad, the one God for all humanity. Amen. Ken Yiratzim should happen speedily in our days. And now, as advertised, Shalom Tekeilah.